The upgrade is not a bigger board, it's a second one, and a third, and a fourth. But before you spend a dime, I need to talk you out of the reason you probably want them. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Smart Workshop, and welcome to Act 2. At the end of last episode, I made you a promise. I said I'd answer the question everybody asks about clustering, and that the answer would be no. So let's do that right now up front, because everything else in this act depends on you believing me. The question is this: if I wire 4 boards together, will my model run 4 times faster? No, it won't run faster at all. In most setups, it would actually run slower, and I want you to understand exactly why, because the reason is the same physics we measured back in episode 4. So remember the law. To generate 1 token, the machine reads every weight in the model. Your speed is memory bandwidth divided by model size. Now picture slicing a model across 4 boards. To produce each token, those boards have to pass partial results to each other over an Ethernet cable. Your memory bus moves tens of gigabytes a second. Your network moves a fraction of that with latency on every single hop. So you've taken the fastest part of the machine and bolted the slowest part of the machine into the middle of it. Per token, every token. So no, a stack of boards is not a supercomputer. I said that in episode 1, and now you've got the arithmetic behind it. One model wants 1 machine with fast memory. That's Tier 2's job, and its slot in this lab is still deliberately empty. So why on earth are we buying 3 more boards? Because the model was never the lab. Look at where we ended. Act 1. 1 board running a model, a chat interface, and everything your household now depends on. And I showed you the problem. 1 power supply, 1 drive, 1 point of failure. So here's what clustering actually buys us. And I'd argue every one of these matters more to an AI lab than raw speed. First, survival. When a board dies, and one will, the services it was running move to another board and keep going. Your family's chat history doesn't vanish because a power supply gave up at 2 in the morning. The lab develops the one property that separates infrastructure from a science project. It outlives its parts. Second, room. Think about what's coming in this series. A memory system, a browser the AI can drive, tools, agents, a security gate, a dashboard. That's a dozen services, and they can't all live on 1 board alongside a model that's already eating most of it. So 4 boards is not 4 times the speed, it's 4 times the room, and room is what we're actually short of. Third, scheduling. And this is the quiet superpower. With a cluster, you stop deciding where things run. You describe what a service needs: this much memory, this much CPU, this storage, and the cluster finds it a home. A board gets busy, work lands elsewhere. You stop being a person who administers 4 computers, and you become a person who operates 1 lab. And fourth, upgrades without downtime. You drain 1 node, update it, bring it back, move to the next. The lab never notices. Compare that to Act 1, where updating the operating system meant the whole household lost the service. That difference is the difference between a toy and a utility. Now notice something about that list. Every item is about the services around the model, not the model itself. The model is 1 tenant in this building, an important tenant, the anchor tenant, but the building is the point, all right? So if we're doing this, what do we run it on? There's a few names in this world, so let me walk the honest shortlist. Full Kubernetes, the real heavyweight thing, is what industry runs, and it's absolute overkill for 4 small boards. The control plane alone would eat a meaningful slice of our little machines. Docker Swarm is genuinely simple, and I've got a soft spot for it, but the momentum of the whole ecosystem has moved elsewhere. And I don't want to teach you something the world is quietly walking away from. Nomad is elegant, and I respect it. But the community around it, the guides, the tooling, it's thinner. And when you're stuck at midnight, community is a feature. And then there's K3s, Kubernetes but distilled. 1 small binary, designed from the start for exactly our situation: small machines, ARM processors, the edge. It ships with the important batteries included. And here's the part that matters most. It is Kubernetes. Every skill you build on this tiny cluster, every concept, every command, transfers directly to the biggest clusters in industry. So you're not learning a homelab dialect. You're learning the real language on training wheels you'll barely notice. So K3s, that's the call, and now you know why. Now, the shopping list. And here's where I'm going to deviate from the textbook on purpose and tell you exactly why. The textbook answer is buy 3 more boards matched to your first. Same memory or better storage on every one, no exceptions. And after episode 9, you'll understand why I'm militant about the storage. If you're buying new, that's still my advice, full stop. But look at this stack on my bench. These are my older boards. 4 gig machines a generation back, and I own an embarrassing number of them because this channel is what it is. So the 3 boards joining our 16 gig board are coming out of the parts bin. And yes, that means our cluster is about to be mixed. 1 big modern board and 3 smaller older ones. And I want to be completely upfront, that's not the ideal. But it isn't bad either. Kubernetes is perfectly happy to place work on machines that aren't identical, as long as you tell it what each one can offer. Using what you already own is the most workshop thing there is. And here's the good news that makes it more than a compromise. In episode 11, our mismatched boards are going to teach us one of Kubernetes' best tricks, which is how to tell the scheduler which work belongs on which machine. A perfectly matched cluster couldn't even demonstrate it. Beyond boards, you want a small network switch. 5 or 8 ports, nothing fancy, and I mean that. The cheap unmanaged one on the shelf is fine, and that's what I'd start with. Power for 4 boards. And honestly, a tidy way to mount them, because a lab you're proud of is a lab you maintain. Now, I run mine a fancier way, and I'll show you it because it's genuinely lovely. But I want to be straight that it's an upgrade, not a requirement, and it costs more than people expect. So I power the whole stack over the network cable. Power over Ethernet. 1 cable per board instead of 2, which is a real difference once you're past about 6 machines. And more usefully than the tidiness, because the switch controls the power, if a board locks up hard, I can cut and restore its port from my desk and usually bring it back without walking over there. But 2 things that cost you, and neither one is on the box. These boards don't take power over the network on their own. You need a little add-on board or an inline splitter for each one. So budget that per node and check availability because it comes and goes. And remotely cycling a port needs a managed switch, which is not the cheap one I just recommended. So start with the cheap switch and a power strip. And come back to this when the walking over there starts to annoy you. It's a quality of life upgrade, and quality of life upgrades should be earned. And here's the topology we're building toward. 4 boards on 1 switch. One of them wears a second hat as the cluster's brain, the control plane, and all 4 do the work. Storage spread across them, so data survives a dead node. 1 entry point with real names instead of numbers. And on the diagram, 1 dotted empty slot off to the side. That's tier 2. Not yet. But look how the shape of the lab already knows it's coming. Reality check. Clustering adds a lot of complexity. Not a little. A lot. You are about to learn a scheduler, a storage layer, an ingress layer, and a whole vocabulary of new failure modes. And there will be an evening in this act where something won't schedule, and the reason will feel like witchcraft. I'll show you the real errors when we hit them, because pretending this is smooth would be a lie. So here's my honest filter. If what you wanted was a private chat bot, you finished that project last episode, and it's a good project. So don't build a cluster because a YouTuber made it live tidy. Build it because you want what's coming. A lab that remembers, acts, checks its own work, and survives its own hardware. Build it because you want the skills. Because I promise you, the ability to run real infrastructure on machines you own is worth more than any single thing that infrastructure runs. And if that's you, and if you're still here, it's you, then the complexity isn't a cost, it's the curriculum. Next time, we stop talking and start typing. 4 boards, 1 command each, and in about 20 minutes, we'll be staring at a genuinely real Kubernetes cluster on a desk. I'll also show you the first thing that breaks, because it will, and it'll break for a reason that teaches you something important about ARM. And I'd rather you saw it on my bench than discovered it on yours. I'm Joe with the Smart Workshop, and I'll see you next time.